And now, everyone, please put your hands together and give a warm welcome to your host, Rob Catto.
Thank you, everyone. So good afternoon and welcome to this session. My name is Rob Catto. I'm the program director for the Game Design Graduate Program and also the new Simulation and Visualization Program. I want to thank everyone that's here on campus joining us, and also to those of you online. We appreciate you showing up. I'm hosting this session on how VR and AR will change the world, and I'd like you to put your hands together for our panelists, Glasco and Elbert Perez.
Just for you.
So, 20 years ago, I came to Full Sail and started my position as a course director, and the course I taught was VR. And over the next 5 years of teaching that course, I told everybody that in the next 5 years, VR is going to be amazing and it's going to take over your world. And unfortunately, it went to sleep, and like Rip Van Winkle, and it woke up in the last 3 years. And now we've got this awesome, incredible technology that's going to open the doors for a lot of you. And it doesn't matter if you're in any of the game dev programs or the simulation program. Any program here at Full Sail is going to be able to take advantage of that technology. So to get started, I'm going to ask our panelists, we've all heard of AR and VR, but what is really the difference between the two? So Chance, what's the difference between AR and VR in your opinion?
Ooh, I'm loud. AR is using your real-life environment. AR is using your real-life environment and manipulating what's in your environment already. So, imagine if it's almost like real-time compositing. So you're looking around, and then there's things popping up in your environment that aren't actually there. VR is completely, you're completely locked in. You're only seeing the screen, and you're simulating a brand new environment that doesn't actually exist.
And you?
What Chan said, but no. But basically, it is what Chan said. Like, AR is all about the world and how do you augment it, and with VR is actually replacing the world with a totally different, kind of view. So basically, in VR, you're blocked from seeing the world. In AR, you see the natural world, but it is being augmented with an overlay, basically like a heads-up display.
So Elbert, in the last several months, the hype surrounding VR has really gotten strong. Do you think VR is here to stay, or is it just a fad that's going to go away?
I mean, we can just ask Facebook, right? They just spent, what, $2 billion in Oculus? And that's a lot of money. That's not, play money. That's real hard-earned Facebook money, even for them.
And how much money did Magic Leap get?
Oh, yeah, and they went...
Almost $1 billion.
Almost $1 billion. Yeah.
Wow.
Am I on? Yeah, and really, it's here to stay because there's all these players that came in. Microsoft with their AR, with HoloLens, HTC and Valve. We're partnering together to provide the HTC Vive, and obviously the Oculus and Rift. Even Samsung is in the game. And if you look all around you, there's all these like startups like Kickstarters, Indiegogos, all these HMDs, and all the peripherals are coming out to support VR, which a market that isn't even here yet. It's here in a mobile sense, but not in the premium. But there's all this support and all this energy. I've never seen it before in my career, and this is truly exciting.
And $2 or $3 billion is nothing compared to what we're going to see in the next couple of years, because there's so many wealthy investors have never even used VR. And it doesn't matter if you're showing a 10-year-old or a 75-year-old. You put them in a HTC Vive, give them, controllers, it's going to blow their mind. And, with older people who usually don't play video games, it's not playing a video game, it's just natural. You just know how to interact in the environment.
Yeah. It becomes an experience. It's not as much as a game or something that, people think as, oh, that's something young kids will play. It's not. Everyone will use it because it is something that will truly change how we interact with everything.
It's literally the beginning of the Matrix, which is scary in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it is.
And if you haven't tried good VR, after you use it, you'll probably think the same thing.
Yep.
So, Chance, you've been living in Brazil for a while.
Yeah, for
Is
8
the
or 9
hype
months.
as big down there as it is up here?
Well, considering the cost of VR down there, I mean, people make maybe like a fifth of what you'd make in the States, and then there's another 100% tax and everything that comes in. There's hype, but unfortunately for a lot of Latin American countries, it's not very affordable yet, but it's going to. I mean, it's affordable on a phone, you know. If you can get it on a phone, I guess you're going to see VR mobile probably in countries that are more developing. But yeah, it's going to be everywhere. You know, there was in Rio, there was someone who was bringing, I guess it was Google Cardboard into the favelas, which are like the slums in the hills, and using it as educational tool and just blowing the minds of these kids.
So, Elbert, what do you think is the best way to introduce somebody to AR or VR?
To get them involved in it or developing?
Just to introduce them to it right off the bat.
Just stick it to their head. I mean, it's it really that's how most people will get it. Like VR, try this. I'm like, people will be like, oh, really? And they're like, oh my God, it actually works. Especially with the higher end VR. It's like, oh my God, like even the I've converted 100% naysayers and unbelievers into believers after they've put on the Vive. I'm like, okay, Elbert, what you said was true. It really is here. And even with the cardboard and the gear, the lower end VR, people understand, that hey, it's here, it's accessible, and it's real. It's because you literally see scale and you're transported to a different world. And I mean, to see is to believe, right? And they're literally seeing it.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, here's an example. I was demoing. Had probably 300 people I demoed to at the Brazil Game Show in Sao Paulo, and there's this kid who was like, Globo showed up, and Globo is the biggest. They're bigger. They're like Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN put into one. That's how big they are. And they're like, hey, we want to record someone using this, record the experience. And I hadn't had any problems. This kid puts it on, and it's a demonstration where you're kind of floating for part of it. And I said, hey, you're on Globo, so feel free to like react, And so he gets into it, and I'm watching him, and he's holding onto this chair, and I see him start shaking, and then I realize like there's sweat pouring down on the like on the seat, just dripping out of his hands, and I'm like, wait a second, he's not acting. It's like, what's going on? And he starts trembling and he starts crying, and then he started just crying. I had to take him out of it, and this is all like live national TV. And I was like, this is awesome. I told you it works. And then I felt bad because I was like kind of happy that he was
Crying.
traumatized. And then he did the interview, and he was like crying but excited at the same time. He was like, that was so amazing. Yeah, so it's getting so real that you can address phobias with. He had a fear of heights. That was a problem.
Yeah.
And he really felt like he was flying. So.
And I want to add to that too. Like we've done hundreds of demos for the Vive, and every so often in the demo rooms you hear a big thud. I'm like, what happened there? Oh yeah, the lady just like ran into the wall because she wanted to chase after the bunny. I'm like, why is she doing that? I'm like, 'cause she was so immersed, and people screaming and howling and like having fun. It's like, oh my God, it's here. It's like it's just not me. It's like everyone who's trying it has been amazed by it.
Yeah, I've had many people freak out in my simulator. Throwing their legs up, screaming, hollering. Yeah, it's about as real as you can get these days. So the executive vice president of Unity Labs said, VR is going to be the conduit to make authoring easier. You're a 3D artist. What do you think he meant by that?
Basically, I mean, using the Vive yesterday, I only had one control. Usually I'd have two. But just imagine animating. It'd be like if you were the model, I'd just grab your foot and move it and hit a button and key your foot, and I could just walk around and see the animation from any angle. And so animating is I think it's going to be a lot more fun. It's going to be better too. It's going to be what you see is what you get because you're there. And modelers, you're going to be sculpting in real life, Mudbox or whatever, VR and everything.
And how animators, they kind of act out a lot of things before they can animate it. Now you're removing that barrier of having go into your mouse and computer try to recreate that. You just act it out, because we have the motion controllers. You can pretty much do a really cheap mocap with just the VR.
Yeah, you could
controllers.
probably mocap, your arms or something with the
Well,
correct-
they've actually got suits now
Yeah,
that
they
you can
do
put
have
on with about 16 to 24 sensors.
Yeah.
And you could literally in VR become the character, and while you're moving, watch the character move.
I want to, this is random, but I want to see if I can get VR working for my dog. Like just.
Oh,
put
someone
like
actually did. Someone
Really?
put a
Someone put a put a-
controller on the dog.
Wait, but did the dog have the headset? That's.
Oh, for the dog.
Because my dog loves to chase cats, but I won't let him.
No, I saw somebody put a Google Cardboard on
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a cat or a dog, but
Yeah.
put.
Poor thing.
So Albert, what do you think are going to be the biggest opportunities in this industry?
Oh my goodness, everything.
Yeah.
I can't even begin to say what industries. Like it will touch the auto industry, the healthcare industry, obviously the entertainment industry, how we consume media, how we interact with each other. There's a lot of opportunity, and actually a lot of it's actually making things more accessible, cheaper, and imagine school children, right? Instead of having most school children won't be able to go to Mount Everest, and most of us actually won't ever try Mount Everest, but you can right now there's a demo, it's called Everest, where you can actually go up and experience, climbing Everest and then crossing those big ravines on a ladder, and you're like literally looking down, if I fall, I'm gonna die. That's literally what's going through my mind. I'm like, I know this is VR. I mean, this is what I do every day. And just, oh my goodness, just any industry will benefit from it. There's no one that won't.
And it's so real that when you do Everest, you might think, man, I should wear like a gas mask so I can't breathe as well to simulate it,
Yeah.
Or I did a racing game, I was like, oh, I should get a fan. And then, you get your fan, you did this, right? You hook it up to the speed, you can connect it to a variable, so the faster you go, the harder the wind blows. And
Well, that's one of the things that's going to be challenging about virtual reality is the more senses you can involve in a simulation, the deeper level of immersion you're going to have. So you've got 5 senses, and taste is probably going to be the last one that anybody's really going to focus on. But all the others, your sense of sight, touch, hearing, smell, all of those are going to be very, very important to making a really immersive environment.
Rob, do you think that we're going to see, obviously touch will be tough too, because we can't just have things magically appear, that you can, and there's also, taste, but do you think
No,
we're
but
going
we
to
can do
tap in?
haptics.
Yeah, we could do
The
haptics.
fan would
yeah.
be an example of haptics. My simulator, I've got a bass shaker on the back of the chair.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things will be your haptic inputs. But eventually, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but there are some examples of touchable holograms.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How does that?
Magic.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Do a search, but.
Are we going to be tapping into our brains, basically, is what I'm saying, to get this?
Well, I know we're doing some research on sim sickness and using the brain and your vestibular system to fix that. Because there's still always going to be a percentage of the population that is going to get sim sick, even though latency rates are down to a point where it's pretty much fixed it for most people.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to cure and help people that last few percentages using some type of vestibular input is right around the corner.
Right.
Nice.
With that, what do you think the biggest challenges are going to be for the industry?
I think for designers, it's going to be design decisions. Like there's, if you're going to Full Sail now and you're game development programming, you already are learning how to make VR. It's not like, it's more like buying a monitor than it is like something completely new. It's basically, in a sense, it's like a fancy monitor. So if you can develop 3D for a monitor, you can develop 3D. But when it comes to, we have to find ways not to make people sick, right? We have to realize that some things that we thought might be fun aren't fun, and vice versa. And then there's all the hardware. Like, to reach the consumer, we can't all just be wearing suits and have all these attachments, like look some kind of Frankenstein robot. It needs to be something simple.
For me, like Chan said, like the programming part is like pretty much the same as normal programming for 3D applications. And the challenge for me every day when I work on the Vive is actually designing the UI, because we're so used to all the design principles we've designed revolves around a 2D screen that's really constrained. And now with VR, we've opened it up to, you don't have to do information on panels anymore, but we're so trained to work with panels and TVs and all that stuff that our brain naturally gravitates to that, which is fine as a stopgap measure. But I believe that the next design challenge is how do we do information architecture that really benefits VR in terms of if I see an object, how do you display information, and figuring out what's the best way to do that. And right now, there's no good way to do it that people have shown. But that will quickly evolve as more and more people try out VR and they start developing and experimenting. So the more people working on VR, the faster this crazy new platform will get, and we will see the benefits really quickly.
But I also think we're going to see some problems that, as much as I don't want to think about this, there's going to be issues with, I don't know to what extent, but it's going to affect us, it's going to affect our brains. I'm not saying in a permanent state, but I'm saying like anything, you can become addicted to it. It's going to be really easy to just kind of escape the world and go in VR for all day, probably, if you're not happy with your outside life. So just like, anything that gives you a dopamine shot, there's going to be addictions. A good example, and this is, you can chuckle or whatever, but it's true. There's been, studies recently by scientists that are studying the effects of high definition pornography on the brain to people who are addicted, and what they're finding is that people are actually, if let's say they wake up in the morning and watch porn for 3 hours, are losing their dopamine for the day. And so they go out in the real world and simple things don't make them happy. And this could transfer into just, this happens with video games too, not to the same extent. But it's gonna be interesting to see how does this affect us, neurologically, spiritually, physically. It's something to, pay attention to, but it's no reason to not accept the technology. With every new technology, there's good and bad, and it's how do you use the tool, and that's what's important.
There's a whole lifestyle change due to the high bandwidth accessibility in Korea with the young people over there and the games that they've been playing. Which is a whole lifestyle change. I think personally myself, there are two things that are really going to be challenging, and one of those is getting your hands into virtual space. We do so much with our hands, and to not have to wear a set of gloves or an exoskeleton, hands are going to be a big thing. I know Leap Motion just released a brand new software pack for their Leap device, and we're experimenting with it right now, and it looks promising. I was really hopeful for a package from a company called NimbleSense. They had a Kickstarter, but unfortunately, Oculus bought them up, and I haven't heard a thing about what they're doing. And there's been no more record of what has happened with their technology. The second thing is content. Content, the hardware's here. It's coming. But content is going to be a really, really big thing for the virtual environments. And those of you that are content creators are going to be right up there in line, ready to be there and fill those holes where content is going to be. But with that, let's move on to, speaking of content, what content is going to be the most popular? Chance?
Man, it's hard to say. There's so many things you can do.
Outside of the what you already mentioned earlier.
Yeah, let's not go there. But I don't know. I mean, initially you're going to see games and like simulation for jobs and military and stuff. But I couldn't really tell you what I think will be most popular. I think once we get VR sports watching, where you can actually sit in the stadium and watch your favorite team play. That's already something that's being worked on, and once that becomes good, where you can move around and it feels like you're actually there, that'll be huge because sports are so mainstream. Games, I know, it's hard to say, honestly.
Well, I mean, for a good indicator of what content's going to be like Sundance this year, like it was just a few weeks ago, had 22 different VR experiences on display, and they're all wildly different, wildly awesome. And these are like only a few people who have headsets right now because we're trying to get them out, and by the end of the year, a lot more people will have it. And I'm so excited in what people will create, what crazy things I can put on, what magical world I'm going to be in, because it really transports you to another world. And for content, like you'll see, all the content play, all these big players everyone wants to be a platform because they know content is the one that's going to drive a lot of sales, money, and whoever has the best content selection will prevail. And that's what everyone's trying to angle for, more than the hardware, because hardware will get cheaper over the years. Margins will get thinner. I mean, that's just how the hardware industry is. And in order to keep it sustainable, you have to do the software play.
With that in mind, what do you think is the biggest challenges for content creators in a virtual environment?
Right now, the biggest challenge is people learning how to work in 3D, which is awesome for you guys here who are in 3D and learning it, because you guys already have a leg up, because all the techniques you use for creating 3D content, 3D applications will directly apply. You're just basically changing how you view it via the camera. Just learning how the best way to perceive content is going to change. Like, a good example is 360 video. It's good for seated rotational video, but if a lot of systems start letting you walk around, the 360 video doesn't work because you have to be in the center of the sphere and you can't interact with it. So interactive experiences like that becomes more important, and a lot of people aren't geared to do that kind of thing, or the creative people have only begun experimenting with interactive experiences that are more experiential rather than you're just watching from afar.
I've been in VR for 20 years now, and the technology that has come out in the last 3 years drops the cost of the technology from $500,000 down to these bundled boxes that are coming out with a helmet, HMD, and a computer for $1,400, $1,500. Where do you think the cost of VR is going to go from here?
It's only going to go down, because obviously we want, as the manufacturers, we want people to have our products, and over time we'll figure out how to make it cheaper, better, faster. But the cool thing is it's the convergence, right? Because right now there's mobile VR and there's high premium VR and there's kind of gear VR in between. But eventually those will kind of merge down into the middle and just be called VR. And we'll all know that VR is this headset that you have, then you put on your head, and that's the whole experience in its own self-contained system. And I believe that's the future to making it accessible. And you're probably still gonna have those high-end headsets that are attached to a computer, just because people will keep pushing for higher visuals and better interaction. But the main mass market appeal will be in those little headsets.
Yeah, it's never mind.
Well, I know that 20 years ago, what cost $500,000 is nowhere near the visual acuity and the speed and content that you can do today.
When I use VR, part of it makes me something that makes me really excited is that, okay, this is really cool, but I know in 5 years it's going to be so much better. In 5 years, we'll definitely have 4K, 90 frames a second, maybe better. And so I'm thinking, wow, this is this cool now. 5, 10, 20 years, like, oh my goodness, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. So Elbert, what's the Vive going to go for?
Nice try, Rob.
Money.
It'll cost money.
Oh, shucks. So this is to both of you, and I'll ask you, Chance, first.
Right.
How is the technology changing the type of work you're doing or will be doing?
Kind of like what I was talking about earlier about as an animator, I'm going to be in the environment, working in the environment. And also, I was talking with you yesterday, someone about this, where a lot of people are telecommuting. They're working through the internet. Well, now you can do that, except you can actually work in the same office with someone. You can put on your VR headset, and you can have as many monitors as you want, and you can put anyone anywhere working anywhere. So you could literally in VR walk over and talk to someone who's in India. So. Yeah, that's huge. And like I said, animation, modeling, programming. I guess you could have as many screens as you want. I don't know. How do you think it's going to affect programming?
It would change the flow. Like right now, how my flow is when I work is, I still look at a monitor, type my code, fix a lot of things in Unity. Just because of the way your text is rendered, with the screen right now, it's not high enough resolution to show large amounts of text in a condensed area. So if you do want a large amount of text, it's literally the size of a building to actually see it decently. But once the displays get better, or if we find a better way to display information, I believe that my whole workflow will just be in VR, because I can just write my code up and execute, and suddenly my world changes around me, and I can do adjustments. Very similar to how you do it. You would do it in animation, and maybe I'll even see you there and
exactly.
playing with the animation.
And I could make you like, I don't know, a panda bear or something.
Yeah, and I'll be like, oh wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you can change what you are.
It's like watching someone do chainsaw art.
Yeah.
It'll be a cool.
I've got 2 paragliding simulators, and about 3 weeks ago, John Zabon and I got 2 of them working together, networked in a virtual environment. And just being able to look over to your right and see somebody else in a virtual environment is extremely exciting.
Right, totally exciting.
And then also to be able to just holler at them over there and say, "What did you just do?" But it was really cool.
I experienced that, but it was by accident. When I first got my DK2 Oculus, I downloaded some like cinema program, and I thought it was just like, sit in a cinema and watch like a movie file. Well, I go in, and I'm in this theater, and there's all these different screens, and you can just walk into one, and I kind of look over, and I see one screen is already like on. I see color flashing like into the hallway, and so I look in, and it's Spider-Man, like one of the new Spider-Man movies. I was like, I don't have that. I didn't pirate this. Like how is this, like, where did this come from? Why is this on the screen? And then I look in, and there's like another character model in there, and I'm like, hello? It was like, hey man, what's up? I was like, wait, I'm online? And so I go in, and I sit next to the guy, and I say, I didn't even know this thing was online. And I talked to him, I was like, we have a conversation like you're having a beer at a bar or something,
Where was he from?
Florida. Was it you?
You were in Brazil?
No, I was in LA, yeah. And so we were just talking about regular life things during the movie. And there was no one else there, so it didn't matter. We weren't being rude. I mean, he probably pirated it. That's rude in its first place, so.
What do you think the biggest hardware constraint right now is going to be with virtual reality?
Video cards, GPU. That's always our bottleneck right now, is because it requires a lot of GPU. But the good news is, new video cards are coming out. I think NVIDIA's doing Pascal pretty soon. And there's going to be a lot of optimization specific for VR that isn't even implemented. So right now we're brute forcing everything. We're rendering everything double. We're throwing away pixels left and right. So once we get that rendering down, and then the engines become more optimized for VR, we'll see a lot less bottleneck for that part.
Yeah, and there's something called
Fovetta.
Fovetta rendering. I'll let you explain it.
Yeah,
you probably.
please do.
Well, when you look around in real life, your eyes are moving back and forth, constantly focusing on different things, and there's only a small percentage of your viewpoint that's actually full in focus. And the further you go out in your periphery, the less focus you see, into the point where you may only be seeing movement or color. And what they're doing now is they're taking a percentage of the screen where your eye is looking, so they got to track your eyes. And then in that area, which is probably 15% of the screen, they're rendering it at full resolution. And then as they go out in a circle away from that point, they reduce the resolution. It's like LOD for your eyes. And If you only have to render at full resolution that 15% of the screen based on where you're looking, it's gonna increase the ability of the GPU to push more polygons.
Right.
So field of view. How important is that to immersion and virtual reality?
Up to a certain point, it's pretty important. If it's too narrow, you'll very much notice it. But with the Vive, I'm not sure what the full numbers are, but you can actually see some of the corners of it. But the magic is, once you start going through the experience, you forget about it. Your vision just get magically erased. Unless you specifically look for it, you won't even notice it. So it's pretty amazing. And to add with how our vision works, actually it's pretty creepy because we don't really have full 180. Like we have interpreted data over here, which is actually a few milliseconds old. So you're kind of looking into the past, or you're seeing your vision from the past. This is not real time. It's very interesting.
For me, field of view is, again, like your hands, it's one of the very important components of immersion. And anything less than 100 degrees field of view, you're not fully immersed. It looks like you're looking at something, a TV screen that's a few feet away from you. Back in the day, I experienced an HMD, a head-mounted display, that used leap optics. And the disadvantage to the leap optics was that it was a very, very heavy front-ended HMD, but it gave you 140 degrees field of view. And you didn't see the sides. You basically felt like you were totally immersed in that world. And as technology gets better and as lenses become better, that kind of field of view is right around the corner. There's a company called Wearality that's making a Fresnel lens that gives you about 130 degrees, 140 degrees field of view right now. And I suppose they will soon be getting together with some of these HMD manufacturers to add those lenses into the new HMDs that are around the corner. Have any of you two panelists ever experienced anything with taste or smell?
In VR, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
VR.
I've seen the smell of visions, but haven't tried it.
One time my hard drive burned up while I was using VR. Does that count?
There's a HMD add-on.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah.
It's like a cape.
Yeah,
thing,
that will give you the sense of smell. I think they've got 6 or 7 scents that you can combine or push with a little fan.
Yeah.
But they've also got little water sprayers that mist your face. Does that really help? Does it really make a difference?
If I'm in the office, I don't want that. I mean, this is kind of annoying. But I guess if I'm more of like, oh, I want to do the full experience, yes, water, everything, lightning, thunder, you name it, give it to me. But I think right now, just to get mass consumption, because right now, just hearing about it's like, oh man, that's kind of gimmicky. But until we kind of prove it, that's not gimmicky to a lot of people, then it will kind of stay in the fringe. But it's something, if people want more, it will be brought in, and if it works and people like it, then it will stay.
Yeah, I think it's per application at this point. Like let's say you're building a racing simulator. A really useful thing would to be able to smell your tires. When you're losing grip, or smell your brakes. And that's something I'm pretty sure you could do now. I mean, you take the same kind of data that you're getting, like get data out of Project Cars or something, and I even found online a place that had like a burnt rubber scent, and it connected to that, and you're like, oh, I'm losing grip, or my tires are getting bald, or whatever. And that's useful. It's not just immersive.
But I mean, and before we even get to that kind of sense, sound is actually the one that really brings everything together. Like, I remember I was working on this little prototype on a space station. It's like, oh wow, cool, space station, everything's floating, I can see outside of space. And I put on the headset, and I'm like, oh my god, it's wow. And my boss walked in like, Elbert, what the hell are you doing? Like, oh, I'm just trying out this space station thing.
Elbert, there's no sound in space.
Oh.
What were you listening to?
Oh, well, there's some atmosphere. It was venting slowly.
Space music.
Yeah, I was in a space station. But it really is super important. Like binaural audio, which was, it's an old technology, but now it's in the forefront because it really adds like, the sound. Like if you can, it's basically letting you hear full 3D audio, not just pan left and right, but up and down, forward and back. And like one of the best examples for binaural audio is this, like the barbershop. It's called the barbershop. Where basically, you can hear the clipper go around your head, and it's like very freaky.
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube. So write it down and check it out. Put some headphones on. It's really cool.
Yeah, and according to my sound guy, like that's like the holy grail for binaural audio, and we're getting there.
Actually, those microphones creep me out. There's microphones that have ears, like human ears molded on the side of them.
My sound guy has that.
Because our ears affect the acoustics of every sound wave that comes in. And so when you record binaural audio, it's literally a microphone with two, like, rubber ears on the side. And some guy walking around like this, like some crazy guy in Hollywood.
Oh, mine is like even creeps, like two, and then up. It's like a club of ears.
Yeah.
like, what is that? And he was like bringing it to Taiwan. Like, I wonder what TSA thought about. Like, what is this?
I've played around with olfactory or smell, and I added what was supposed to be an explosion smell to one of my simulators, and the delivery and the environment when you flew into it and flew out of it was great. But they've got a lot of ways to go with the smells. It was supposed to smell like gunpowder, and it smelled like lilacs. So
Was it actual gunpowder you were using? Because that doesn't sound very safe.
but they've got a lot of ways to go with the actual scents that they're creating.
Right.
Yeah.
Hopefully someday somebody will come with an RGB type of
Right. It's like a
sensor
consumable.
that you can mix things together to get the sense.
And hopefully the consumables won't be as expensive as
Yes.
printer ink.
Yeah.
True. So there's one thing that a lot of folks are concerned about, and they've probably heard a lot about it, and makes them leery about getting into virtual reality, and that's sim sickness. What is sim sickness?
I can tell you a story about what happened to me. It was not because of, it was because of some bad performance. So basically, what would cause, in our current generation of HMDs, what would cause a lot of sim sickness is if you have low frame rate and a lot of jitter. So basically, it's telling your system like there's something wrong because your visual senses is not lining up with your body senses, the rest of your senses. So it automatically goes into like you're being poisoned mode and your body will shut down. So a story I personally experienced 2 times this past year was so I was playing with the HMD and there was like some issue where the frame rate got low, so everything was kind of juddery and kind of weird, like, oh, what's happening? And right before that, I was actually eating lunch. I was having a burrito, which was like, smelled like onions. So I had my HMD here holding my hands, and I had my fingers here. I could smell the onion smell. I was like, oh my God, like what is happening? And then my head started hurting immediately. And I went to a meeting. I was like, oh, I need to go home, man. I'm like shutting down. Like I feel like I have food poisoning.
Was it Taco Bell?
No, it was like a
Are you
food
sure
truck.
it's sim sickness?
But here's the crazy thing. So I felt like I had food poisoning. I went home, and I slept for like, a good 2 hours. And I wake up, and like, oh my God, I'm totally fine. It's like my body just needed to reset because it thought I was legit having poison, but without the actual toxins. So like, oh, you're fine. And it's real. And and that's a pretty like extreme case. But you can get people sick. With VR, it's so realistic. Like if you get car sick easy or you get seasick or any of those, you will get that same type of sickness in VR.
That's why it's so important for guys like you and Oculus and everyone else to get it right the first time.
Oh, yeah.
If people use VR and they get sick the first time, even if it's fixed later, you associate the experience with something bad. I've heard of people who associated the smell of like the rubber in the head unit with being sick.
Oh, wow.
And so even when it was fixed, like that smell connected them neurologically with the bad experience, and the smell made them sick.
Right, and the thing is, like, a lot of people were very cautious that we're trying to. I got sick last time I tried, this other headset that I won't name. It's like it was a bad experience. Like, no, you gotta trust us. Like, if you have the proper 90 frames per second, you won't get sick. And they put it on. Oh yeah, I'm not getting sick. I'm enjoying this. Like today, we had one of the course directors was like, yeah, I get sim sick easy, and then he was fine when he tried Power Pro.
So there's a lot of reasons for sim sickness, but one of them is this concept of latency and motion to photon. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's kind of what Elbert was saying earlier. Is if you move your head to the left and everything lags by 50 milliseconds, you're gonna get sick because your brain's saying, "Hey, I'm looking over here," but you're not looking over there. So it's almost like this weird kind of drunk feeling without any benefit.
I think the key number in latency is like 20 milliseconds. If you can get it under 20 milliseconds.
11.
9.
11.
No, it's 9.
That's what I look at my profile every time. If I go over 11, it's not a good experience.
So motion to photon is a big thing. Also, you mentioned earlier, your visual input shows you doing something, but your vestibular input shows you or tells you something.
There's something
completely
like,
different.
something's wrong.
And frame rate is another, refresh rate. People think, if you play a game at 60, some people, you can see 75, it looks better, but 60 you're fine, typically. But that's because it's a tiny little screen in front of your face. As soon as that blows up and fills your entire field of view, 60 looks like you're playing a game at 24 frames a second, And so it's important to have a refresh rate that your brain can't tell the difference between real life and VR.
Like 90 is the magic number.
John Carmack wants 120.
We'll
That's
get
John Carmack, yeah.
But 90 is like the minimum where everyone won't get sick. And that's the reason why cardboard, right, is not something you strap on their face, because they know it's a pretty substandard experience, and anything past 4 minutes or 5 minutes will make you feel sick, however strong your stomach is. Even I can't do past that. Gear is a lot better, but you'll still get that sickness because you don't have the positional movement. If you just have rotation and you start moving back and forth, it's like, hey, wait, my vision's not lining up to my vestibular system, and you get sick.
Yeah, that was the problem with the DK1. It only had rotational or orientation, and a lot of people were getting sick. It's also one of the smart paths that Oculus took when they first came out with their HMD was they made it available for developers, and developers, whether they got sick or not, were going to plow right through it.
Right.
But if they had made it commercially available, at least 20% of the population would have gotten sick, and that's the first thing that the press would have got a hold of.
Yep.
And VR would be dead now. So
Again.
kudos to them for not doing that. Right now, what type of technology are you currently working with or developing with?
So at work, I use an i7 and a 980 GTX. I recommended is I think i7 970 GTX. I use Unity for all my prototyping, but Unreal Engine 4 works for it. You can even write your own game engine using the OpenVRC libraries. So that's what I use.
I couldn't bring my desktop out to Brazil, so I've got a Asus Republic of Gamers, whatever the latest or second latest model is. And man, you'd be surprised. Like, I can play most games that are released now or this year or last year at high to ultra high quality. And so, and the good thing about VR is that we first think, oh, let's make something that looks completely real, but we're running into what we do with character models, uncanny valley. When you try to go real, something's a little off. So one of the best experiences I had was a demo I did where I was in this super like PlayStation 1 low poly world with like a rabbit and a deer, and it was completely low poly and flat shading, but it was one of the best experiences because I was like in an alien world, and it was stylized. And so I didn't want realism. I wanted something different, and because it was different, I had no point of reference. I was just like, this is real. But not,
So what type of HMDs are you currently using?
What?
I'm using the Vive. Can't tell you what other stuff I'm using, but
I'm waiting for him to get me a Vive. No,
Waiting for him to give me a Vive too. I'm trying
him and his-
to let him, trying to make him leave the one he's got here.
oh,
Yeah, but,
that's my personal Vive.
pretty much
I'm
all
leaving
his
that.
friends are probably. He probably has twice as many friends now, actually.
Yeah. But I mean, you guys will be able to start. I mean, Oculus will start shipping
Yeah.
theirs pretty soon. Our pre-orders will open up pretty soon, so it will be here not too long.
Yeah.
So everyone will have it who wants it.
I have a Note 4, Samsung Note 4, and so up until recently, when I dropped my phone, so half it's cracked. So I don't want to have one eyeball that's cracked and one that's not. So I haven't been using it. But now that I'm back in the United States, I'm working on getting that glass replaced so I can get back into some Gear VR stuff.
With that in mind, what kind of VR technology do you think will lead the market in the next few years?
It's kind of hard.
Come on.
Well,
You mean like accessories that go along with VR,
like the
or like?
VR headsets.
Well, it's obviously going to be the Vive.
I mean, yeah,
Vive's
it'll
gonna
be, it'll
lead
be the
the
Vive.
consumer market.
Yeah,
He's
the
not
Vive
allowed
will
to
be
say anything else. He
point-
works.
yeah,
for that, so.
it's. I'm in a tricky position. Like, no, I can't tell you guys anything.
It could. I think it's going to be either Vive or Oculus. I mean, I think that for me, and even down in his heart, he just wants VR to be good.
Yeah.
He's doing his.
Too. I don't care
Yeah,
what
yeah,
technology
exactly.
comes out.
He's doing the good thing and being a good representative of his company. But down in your heart, you
I
just
love
want good VR.
Well, the thing is, here's the thing with VR, right? Headsets right now, they're already commoditized, right? Everyone has a headset. Everyone can make a good headset or decent enough headset. But right now, what's the thing that we don't have? Not everyone has is positional tracking, right? Or a big area, and eventually that will be commoditized because everyone will be able to develop their own systems. And what's next out of that? Maybe more ways to track your body, or like I said, the finger tracking. But that opens up all kinds of different issues of design and trying to figure out intent, which is hard with hands, versus switches and buttons. You know exactly what the intent was when you press it. So accessorize, like smell-o-vision would be pretty popular. The misting, and really these reality centers will probably pop up, like the Void.
Like the Void.
Yes, the Void, where you can mix reality and virtual reality and create awesome tailored experiences where that smell part would actually make more sense, because you don't want like explosion smells in your house because it might stick around, kind of.
Yeah, imagine. I mean, I'm sure Disney's already working on VR rides, or at least studying. Imagine a roller coaster that you can actually change the environment you're in. And I wonder if VR is going to affect the sales of going to theme parks, because a lot of the experiences are very theme park like.
There's a amusement park in Germany where you can put on the HMD and get on a real roller coaster, and they've tied it.
That's already done then.
So there's this one group that has this technology that nobody knows anything about,
Ooh, it sounds mysterious.
and they're in South Florida.
Yes, they're in Seattle now too.
Magic Leap. Any insight into what they're doing?
So from the grapevine, I won't name who, they basically said that magically, like they showed some commercials, like of what the rendering. They said like it was pretty close. They're just going to show or tell me how big the machine is. Probably big right now. That's why they haven't shown it, but it is there. And it's going to be pretty creepy, because you can start injecting ads and all kinds of stuff into.
Did you describe what it is? It shoots into your retina.
Yeah,
right?
it shoots lasers into your eye.
Virtual retinal display.
Yeah.
Basically, they're doing the scan lines on your retina and stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
Yeah.
But
Crazy. And I was talking yesterday with these guys. It's a crazy time to be alive right now. I mean, in my lifetime, I've seen the internet come about. I've seen now VR, and it seems like so much has happened in just the last 40 years, tech-wise, or 30, 25.
So, in the next 5 to 10 years, your vision for the technology?
it will be ubiquitous. You'll be able to do positional tracking wherever you are, in the mall, in your house, in your office. You'll just be having a VR headset is normal. Like no one's gonna look at you weird. Like why do you have a VR? Well, because it's very very effective. It's more productive than looking at a screen. And there is that privacy issue. Like no one will see what you're doing. So you can be on a plane or a train and have your full virtual office with you as you travel, or you can be on vacation. Like, oh, I just need to fix something quick, and you can do it through your VR and then come back to the world.
Yeah, I mean, kids today that are using VR, they're just going to think it's cool. Their friends are going to think it's cool. They're not going to care how it looks. They're going to grow up with it. And then when they're adults, they're not going to all of a sudden think, oh, VR, it was weird that you have that thing in your head. No, it's just been normal.
Yeah. And really the path to adoption for VR is really through the workplace, where it becomes like, you expose the older adults who are not really into VR, like how that can change their work environment and how they interact with things. And that becomes a normal thing where then they'll bring in, oh, I can do entertainment on this, and they'll bring it to the house or buy their own headset. And that's, I think, personally, how VR will creep into our daily lives. Because just right now, it's very enthusiast type of pricing that we'll probably end up with.
So we're at that stage in the panel here where we'll get some questions from you. So those of you that are on campus here with us, if you raise your hand, they'll bring a mic to you. And for those of you that are online, you can go to the online moderator. I believe they're on the YouTube channel. But if you just raise your hand, they'll bring you a mic, and you can ask your question.
Couple questions. Who do you think is the lead in the VR technology now? Because I know PS4 has their Project Morpheus, and Oculus Rift. Who do you think is the strongest competitor right now? And with the technology that we have now, instead of like 10 years in the future, what makes this not a over-glorified monitor on your head?
You want to answer, since you obviously would be biased, maybe? I used the Vive for the first time yesterday, and as someone who owns a DK2, so far the Vive has been the best experience I've had. I used Oculus's Crescent Bay when I was in Tokyo, at Tokyo Game Show, and it was really good too, but I didn't have any hand controls. They weren't showing those, so I can't really compare the two. But as far as like the best experience I've had so far would be the Vive. And as far as the whole glorified, I mean, I'm not even going to answer that. I'm just going to say do it, and you'll know. It's not a question you have after you use it.
Boiled down to its basic terminology and system, all it is a glorified monitor on your head. But until you've tried it and experienced it and been immersed in it, you're not going to know. And for me to tell you any different, there's no sense in even trying, because once you try it, you'll know, based on your experience, just that it's not just a glorified monitor. Personally, I've tried both. I think the latency on the Vive is a lot lower than on the Oculus. I prefer the touch controls to the controllers that the Vive have. But they're pretty much neck and neck when it comes to resolution and weight and those kinds of things.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it'd be like, and this isn't to say your question was bad, I'm just trying to give perspective here. It'd be like if this was, the late 1800s and we're having a conference or a panel about this new technology called the car, and they're like, well, is it some kind of glorified horse,
Where's the horse?
I was like, no, drive a car, and then you'll realize it's not just a horse with rubber,
I mean, personally, I've tried both I work with the Vive, obviously, and I've tried the Oculus Touch. And the Oculus Touch, I would say, has really good ergonomics, because, they hired the right people to design it. I mean, it's not like our ergonomics are bad, but they have a very interesting and very intuitive way of, using the ergonomics, which kind of made me jealous. But yeah, really what the magical thing is, for us, is how big you can walk with room scale and how many devices we can support. Because machine vision will have a limit to how many devices it can track, because it's a very expensive computation, versus how our system works with laser grids and sensors, which is super cheap.
The other advantage I think you have is your, I don't know what you call it, but your working environment. one, you're going off of Steam.
Right.
But two, when you put the helmet on, you're in this big white room with a grid, and it's not confusing.
Yeah.
And it's actually welcoming.
And you can right now you can actually customize that. We call it the compositor. So it's basically your resting area while you're in between experiences. So you're not just looking at a blank screen. You can put in any 360 by 180 panel, and you can be in Nevada, you can be in Mars or the moon, wherever you want. So it's pretty customizable.
We have a question over here online from Yodi in the Game Art program. The question is, what do you think about ventures like Project Sansar and the democratization of VR?
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, what does that mean?
I don't either.
Project stands.
All right, then
Are they projects?
I don't know, but Yodi had another question, so let's go with that one.
Right.
So Yodi's other question was, what would you suggest for young people who want to get involved in the future of content creation for VR?
Go to Full Sail.
Well, I mean, like, become a consumer, right? I mean, if you have a smartphone, you have a VR headset. Understand the technology, try it, and don't shoot it before you even try it, because it's really a transformational device. And no one goes into or no one will be successful going into making games if they don't love making games or have played games. So try VR, experience it, and experiment. We have all the tools in the world to do VR experiences, and you just need one person, you. You don't need a whole army of people. So just do it.
Yeah, grab yourself a copy of Unity. If you've got a Note 4 or a Galaxy 5 or 6, like you said, you've got a VR headset and just start developing.
I was wondering, in your opinion, what gaming genres do you think will be the most affected by VR or least affected by VR augmented or AR?
I think initially there's certain genres that will work better and certain genres that won't work as well until we figure them out. For instance, I don't want to play Call of Duty in VR because it's too fast. I would get really sick. But for example, there's other gaming genres that I think will make a comeback. I think old school adventure games, the classic point and click games, find the magic pixel and, take the boot and throw it at the cat and he drops a key. Those games, King's Quest, Quest for Glory, all those awesome Sierra Dynamics games, Full Throttle, etc. Because now you can actually open the drawer, you can look under the table, you can explore your environment like it's a real environment, and that's way more exciting than just pixel hunting.
And we've been demoing those games. So what Chance was pretty much explaining is actually, it's a public demo, but most people won't be able to try it right now. It's called Call of the Starseed. So you basically take Myst, turn it into a full 3D environment, and play it. You have all your physics puzzles, or you're looking, so like look underneath a table to find it. You might even have to, use cool tools. Like I think in the demo they had earlier, you had this binoculars that you kind of pick up with your hand and look through it, and then you can have a special vision that goes through it. So it's very intuitive. You just need to teach a person how do you pick up an item, how do you interact with an object, and you let them go and explore, find, and be creative. It's like an Easter egg hunt for real, but in a magical, fantastical world.
And MMOs, socializing in MMOs is going to be huge.
Oh my goodness.
There's going to be people who play MMOs and don't even fight anything. They're just going to go hang out. They're going to be a blacksmith, and sit there and hammer away.
Virtual reality has put new life into Second Life.
Yeah, well, that game never had life. As far as
Well, it's called Alt Space VR now, right? So one thing I want to add is social cues, right, in games. Like social interaction in VR is so much more effective for one very good reason is you can see the person's motion. So if I put, let's say, Chance's head as a giant refrigerator, I would most likely know that it's him the way he moves his head and the way he moves sand. And those social cues are enough to actually make it more personal for me, and knowing that, Chance is actually right here, even though he's virtually there.
Why do you get to be a panda? I get to be a refrigerator.
So I'm gonna say all games are gonna be affected by virtual reality, and it's gonna be a personal thing, because for me, I really want to play Call of Duty, and I want to in an Omni where I can actually run, where I can jump, I can duck. with a gun that's got haptic feedback on it.
Yeah.
That's where I want to be. So it's going to be a personal thing.
And we're getting there. Call of Duty will be, or Call of Duty type games will be a thing. It's just initially, until we figure out how to not get sick, you're gonna, first you'll see games like maybe Ghost Recon that's more slower paced, and then the Call of Duties will figure out the Halos, etc.
Yep.
So yeah, everything. I agree with that too. I just certain things more and less.
It will evolve to be VR specific.
Hi, my name's Wyatt Sniff, and I am in the game design program. And my question for you guys is really like a two-part question. First is, how big of an impact do you think this is going to have for people that are impaired or paraplegic? And then, how big of an impact is this going to have on film?
Can you start?
Sure. They're already impacting people with disabilities right now. I mean, people in wheelchairs who wanted to fly or walk, they're already doing it right now with with the DK2. It's here, it's happening. You don't have to look forward.
Some guy wrote something really simple, like a year ago, just in the community. I was like, hey, I wrote something that fixed my lazy eye. It's like, wow. I'm wondering, like you mentioned paraplegics, like wouldn't it be crazy to look down and see your legs again? And if you could see them again, would you get the feeling that they're there? That's interesting.
So I have actually got some examples.
There.
I took my simulator up to Oshkosh, which is probably the world's largest fly-in. And while there, I put 3 paraplegics and 1 quadriplegic in my VR world. And the 3 guys were able to actually fly themselves. I took the harness out, and they were actually able to manipulate and run everything. For the quadriplegic, we put the helmet on him, and then I flew behind him. And the impact was huge on them and their lives. And we have legs, a body in our harness. So he was able to look down and actually see his legs. So it's a huge game changer. And I actually do powered paragliding, and we have a guy where I fly out of that's a paraplegic, and he's always wanted to do this. And I had my unit out where we fly and put him in it, and he said it was life-changing. He says, this is something I've always wanted to do, never been able to do it, and here in your system, I've been able to do what I've always sat there watching you guys do. For months and years. So yeah, it's going to have a huge impact.
Yeah, I think MMOs are already popular amongst people that are, stuck in a wheelchair or have some, disability that really affects their life because it's an escape. They get to be a powerful person in another world, and do things they can't do here.
And to answer your question about film, I think film doesn't really translate very well into VR. The way that we perceive film right now, where we're a bystander where we just watch the action. What it will evolve to is an experience where there might be slight interactivity, where you can walk around, and the story is happening around you, and you're an active part of that story, which is basically what a game is for all intents and purposes. So a lot of these experiences will revolve around that. And I'm so excited to see what storytellers will create and what emotions, and oh my goodness, it's just a lot of...
I think it'll be closer to theater than film in a way, except you're there on stage.
Yeah, if you've ever experienced the Cirque du Soleil example in the Gear VR, it's amazing because you're right on stage. You got the best seat in the house.
Hello, Robert Smith. I'm doing Game Design Masters. My question is more about AR, because I know you guys have been talking about VR a lot, but AR was going to hopefully utilize mobile phones across the world, and being like everyone has a mobile phone now, that could allow everyone to use AR. So how do you think that will affect the industry alongside VR?
I think AR is actually going to overtake and be more popular than VR, simply because of the example you just gave. More people are going to be able to experience and use it, and more people are going to be able to use it in their day-to-day lives. Whereas you'd go home and put on a VR helmet and have some entertainment or do something like that. AR, you're going to be using all day long.
Yes.
I agree.
We haven't talked a whole lot about it because there's not a whole lot of examples out there.
Yeah.
I mean, a good use case. One of the HoloLens demos was someone who wasn't very good at doing plumbing, and having a technician, someone who's wearing a HoloLens looking at their plumbing, and a technician is telling them, hey, you can do this. And instead of trying to explain it vocally, they can just do an overlay of what you're supposed to do and what part you're supposed to change. So there's no confusion as to what you should be doing. So those types of scenarios, I think, will really help AR really fly. And more, I think personally for me, like the beginnings of AR will be more on the commercial side. And then, like I said with VR, it's going to leak into the personal life as it gets cheaper and more people use it and bring it to their normal lives.
Yeah, AR and VR is going to be huge for training purposes. I was one of the demos I did yesterday. There was a robot that was kind of exploded piece by piece. You could see everything, and I was like, man, if this was a car engine, you could literally just model car engines and within hours or less learn how to take apart and rebuild engines. And it's a fairly simple idea that could be easily executed.
They're going to figure out how to combine the technology where they'll be able to black out the see-through part for AR, so you can do VR, and then also open it up so that you can do AR also, and that's probably 5 to 10 years away.
I mean, right now the Vive has a front-facing camera that you can kind of do. I mean, it's not the best camera right now, but it will allow you to start experimenting with AR in a VR headset.
Hi. So I was just wondering, as the video game revolution kind of took hold, they made a transition to arcades before it became more commonplace for home consoles to be the norm. I was just wondering, do you believe that VR and AR would make a similar transition to an arcade-type culture before coming to homes, or do you think that it's just going to jump directly to the home console era?
I think what Elbert was saying about the experiences, right. I think we'll see those at the beginning, and we'll always have those, but I think more and more people after using it will be like, oh, I can just buy this for $1,500 and do it at home and save all this money if they have the room for it. So I think we'll see these things pop up, and some will fail, and they'll kind of survive for a while. And I think they'll still, like I said, survive for forever, but they're going to be really popular at first, probably.
You can also figure out what the trend will be based on the existing market in different parts of the world. Like, for example, in Asia, internet cafes are super popular because people can't really afford the computers or have the space in their home. So in Asia, it'll probably be a lot more VR centers that would pop up that let you experience VR in these private booths. Kind of like singing karaoke. You just rent a booth and then you do whatever VR you want. And then you can bring your own karaoke machine at home, or if you have the space, like here in the US, I think more people would actually do that.
Okay, we have a question from an online person. It's Charles in game development. His question is, how long do you think it will be for a full dive VR system? And what are your fears, if any, of a full dive VR system?
It's like a Matrix. That's like the Matrix thing.
There's a company out there right now that has a suit that you can put on that has sensors that will track everything. So tracking your body in full motion tracking, body tracking is here. If you're talking about all the haptics that go along with it, that's a little ways out.
Sure. I mean, if the question is really more like plugging a big plug to your head, who knows, right? That's like future technology.
Yeah, that's way down the road.
Yeah, it's like we might not be alive by then.
Sometimes I question if we're already in VR.
We're a simulation.
Feel the cord on the back of your neck?
Well, like I said, like people.
Oh, there is one right here.
Yeah, well, I mean, no. Near-death experiences, people describe reaching back and finding a cord in the back of their neck. I swear, like, study this. It's true.
If someone gives you the blue pill or red pill,
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
take the red pill.
I'm not saying it's happening. Just think about it, man.
Red pill. Yeah, red pill. Yeah.
So whose virtual environment am I in, yours or mine?
I don't know. I'm on your server.
You gotta log out.
Hi, my name is Lexi Rude. I'm in the game design program. With all the headsets that are coming out within the next year, like I've seen that they're pretty expensive, or at least the Oculuses. And you've mentioned before that in 5 years it's going to be like twice as good and half the price-ish. I was wondering if you suggested from a consumer perspective whether or not it would be good to invest in the $5,000 headsets now or possibly wait for a better, cheaper headset.
5 years ago, you probably would spend $800 to $1,000 for an LCD panel, 40 to 50 inches. Now you can buy those things for under 500.
Yeah.
And that's the same direction HMDs are going to go.
Have you used any VR before?
I've used the Oculus.
Oculus DK2?
The consumer version.
It's not
did at E3.
Consumer? No, it wasn't consumer. Oh, the
Crescent Bay?
Crystal Bay.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Crystal Cove. Crescent Bay.
Yeah.
Crescent Bay. No, Crystal Cove's different.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the way I look at it is it's like, you ask someone, is $1,000 expensive? It's not $1,000, but like, let's say, hey, is $1,000 expensive? They're like, yeah. What if it's a house? And they're like, oh, that's all of a sudden cheap. So what I say is like, if you have used it and you're like $600, or if you haven't used it and you think $600 is expensive, when you use it, you won't feel like it's as expensive as you did before you used it, because it's really awesome.
Yeah. It is awesome.
I mean, people spend $600 to bring their family to Disney, and it's only for one day.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
Good point.
I should be a sales guy.
Yeah, you should.
It's hiring.
Yeah, we are actually.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Will Rooks. I'm in the game design program as well. My question is, one of the biggest words that gets thrown around a lot when talking about VR is immersion. My question is, do you think there is a potentially negative impact of too much immersion, i.e. traumatic events?
Oh, yes.
Do you think that certain genres or types of games have the possibility of becoming contraband, like war games?
I think there's going to be issues there. I can't tell you what they are, but
Well, I can tell you a story.
Yeah.
The American horror. I forget what horror story it was. It's some horror story. I hate horror movies. It's like so scary. I don't enjoy that thing.
They're very popular in VR right now.
I know they are. And the thing is, like, we had our team try it out. It's like real life horror story, like that ghoul is gonna eat you, and it's in front of you, and it's full scale, and every single one who they say, oh, I love horror stories. They get, oh my god, or some German dude. He was like, oh my god, why would you do this? And it was in a German accent. I can't do it.
why would you?
Yeah, why would you do it?
That's
You have more
awesome.
called dude.
Ich bin kein Schwuler, aber ich
There
mag
you go.
Bananen.
There you go. Yeah. And
If you knew what I said,
I
you'd
know
laugh
what
more.
you I know what you said because you used that in Germany.
Yeah.
When we were at GDC. Anyway, my point is, it is so scary. You can literally probably give someone a heart attack and kill them because it's so lifelike. The immersion, the presence is so real. It's like, oh my God, I am going to die.
I had a lady get into my simulator, and this is just with a DK2. And the simulation came on. She saw the visuals. She started to move, and she got so freaked out, she literally ripped the HMD right off her head and said, no, 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 no. Now, fortunately for me, I was there to catch the thing. But she was so freaked out about just flying, and it was so real to her that, there are some people that it's really going to affect them from a health point of view.
Yeah, I mean, like with phobias, right?
Fix them. You can fix phobias.
I can fix or make it worse. Like I had someone, one of our employees, like, oh, I need to try it. I'm like, all right, well, here's the underwater experience. He didn't tell me he was afraid of water or hydrophobic, and I was like, I didn't really tell him what the experience was. I said, oh, just try it. And suddenly he's underwater, like, oh my god. It's like he was starting to sweat and like kind of quiet, like, are you okay? I'm actually afraid of water. Can I get out? Yes, you can just take it off. I'm like, whoo. I'm like, can you just something in land?
We could create new phobias. You maybe play
true.
Tetris. You're like, I'm afraid of L-shaped blocks.
Yeah, it's gonna crush me.
I never walk under them anymore.
Yeah, that's scary.
Playing virtual Tetris, yeah, L-shaped.
Or someone else playing it, like it's a symmetrical, like someone playing an arcade, like, why is these Tetris blocks trying to kill me?
Yeah.
Like you're the block that's trying to, squish.
Oof, that's a good VR game.
Yeah, Tetris.
I want to be a frog.
Yeah, and that's a good thing is like scale in VR. You can be anything. You can be a giant celestial being flinging planets around, like Sandbox Universe 2 has VR support, and you can literally throw planets at each other and see them explode. It's like, I'm God. Or it can shrink down to the size of a mouse or a frog and be like, oh wow, I can see what the frog is doing. And it really helps the scale, like helps you emphasize empathy in how how other creatures and other people view their heights or their world.
Hi, my name is Luke DeCrody. I'm in the SimInvis program here at Full Sail.
Smart man.
I've actually, all three of you have mentioned that as far as immersion goes, it's going to end up being more and more hardware. Do you kind of predict that the simulation is going to take, or VR in general, and AR are going to take the direction of adding more and more hardware, or do you think it's more going to head towards the all-in-one kind of ideal?
I think it's going to be based on the application and the simulation.
I mean, people would want convenience, obviously, especially if you want to be able to bring it with you and share it with other people. Then those type of people would gravitate towards like a mid-level device, and those who want the real visceral, like super experiences would probably still go with a desktop. But eventually they'll just merge together and be called VR.
Did that answer your question?
Hey guys, thank you for coming. My name is Steve. I'm one of the audio teachers here, and we started a company called Gotcha VR and been doing 360 video. What sort of application is out there where you can match the video to the virtual environments and marry the two together to layer the different textures onto waterfalls that we've captured or something like that?
AR.
Ah, very cool.
AR would do that. It's kind of crazy, but if you get more information from like a depth sensor, you can start doing like like Project Tango is pretty much probably the best example. But they don't do 360 right now, but they'll let you do map out the real world almost in real time actually through the point cloud, and they'll do geometry and texture over it, and it's pretty amazing technology. And I think they're doing a new system too where they use the cloud where they render things. I forgot what it's called. Jump? I think Google Jump.
I'm not sure.
Where they
Google
use light.
Google does
light
have a
field.
360
Yeah, the
camera called
Google Jump, right? Yeah, it's called the light, using light field where you can get more depth through the series of images. So it's getting there. People want it. So
I think the fact that you can just go on YouTube and watch a 360 video is awesome. And I'm at the point now where I don't want to watch a video other than 360 because I don't want to be constrained to one viewpoint. There's a video out there that has the Blue Angels flying. They take off, and you're in one of the planes. And you can look out the window and not watch the event at all, or you can look at those planes flying 12 inches apart from each other. But it's your choice, and you get to choose the viewpoint that you want to watch the video from. And that to me it makes watching videos so much more live than from one camera viewpoint.
And VR, to add to that, I saw that same video, and VR is super effective at providing scale. Like you wouldn't like if you're watching that in a normal 2D screen, like, oh, that's cool, and you go in the cockpit, oh wow, this is how much close they are, and you can really like use your hands, like, oh wow, that's that close, and it's amazing, like, you know, the scale you get.
Yeah, it adds the depth perception.
Yeah, it's very, especially if you do stereoscopic 360, it really adds a lot.
We have a question online from Jose in the Internet Marketing Program. This question is for Chance. He says, you mentioned Magic Leap and the AR, VR they are creating, and that there is a chance for a way to insert ads. How do you think AR, VR will change advertising?
I don't know. Maybe we'll see the Minority Report type stuff. I think VR, you can use ads in a smart way that fits. Let's say you walk in to a music venue, you know, and music venues there might be posters with ads, you know, on the walls, and if they fit, you see them, and you don't, oh, that ad is so annoying. No, it's part of the environment now, and so it'll be interesting because ads can potentially be less annoying,
right?
Or they could be more annoying, you know.
Well, they're probably more annoying. I mean, I understand the reason why they want ads, and people want to make money, and that's all good. But I mean, personally, I don't want to see the ads.
Yeah, I don't want to see ads, but it's the reality of.
But if they make the headset free, I guess maybe I'll put it on.
Okay, guys, this is our last question for this panel.
Hey, my name is Zane Jones. I'm in game art. I was just wondering, I had a quick thought. Do you guys see or know of any VR kind of integrating with 3D printing at all? Where you can kind of do like a 3D print of anything in the VR?
I would think that it's not going to be VR, it's going to be AR. And you could get a character 3D printed. 3D printers are going to be like inkjet printers. Everybody's going to have one. You know, the 3D printers are down to $300-400, and with an AR setup, you'll be able to print a character and then scan on that character, and who knows what it'll do.
And I mean, if you're asking for the flow, it already exists. I mean, once Maya or Max, like, you know, or any 3D programming software releases their VR packages, you can model in 3D and then send it to your 3D printer in VR.
All right, so thank you everyone for attending this session. Let's give a special thanks to Elbert and Chance. Just as a plug, tomorrow morning we've got another VR session, and we'll have some hardware here that you'll actually be able to look at. You won't be able to try, but you'll be able to look at.